Welcome back to One Winning Pie, where the Ravens were unable to close the door and unfortunately lost a game in overtime 22-19 to the Indianapolis Colts, a team that definitely came to fight and gave the Ravens a little bit of trouble. But at the end of the day, it definitely felt a self-inflicted wound. They were really celebrating when they won that game. I feel like they know that they kind of stole one in a way. They were the underdogs, but were able to persevere because that's what happens in football. A lot of high leverage plays. You have them go your way, and you can win a football game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's debatable. I honestly think that the Ravens, they came out in this game, both sides of the ball, the first quarter, just had their way. I mean, they were able to move the ball and then once Kenyon Drake had that fumble, just kind of lost control of the steering wheel and never really got it back. Credit to the Colts. I don't know if they played a good football game. I don't think the Ravens did, but someone had to win that game. And the Colts, they fought their asses off in that game. I was really impressed with that team, and I think they deserve that win. I do not think the Ravens deserve to win that game. I don't think the Colts stole it. I think that simply the Colts were the better of two bad teams on Sunday, and there's a lot of questions that the Ravens have to answer in meetings this week, I think, in practice, to look at what went wrong and how that can, be fixed for the future. But I mean, going forward, I think, and it's hard to know at this point, but I think we'll look back on this game as kind of a blip. I think this team has a lot of potential, and this is just a frustrating loss. There's a little bit of a reality check that, hey, look, we've got a talented roster, but there's a lot of injuries, and that means that there's less of a room for mistakes in that case. So, a little bit of a wake-up call early in the year. Got a tough game against Cleveland, but coming up. But hats off to the Colts. I think they had a really strong effort in this game, and the Ravens just unfortunately too sloppy of an outing for them to get a win there.
Yeah, I think, you want to come out and say, I think for most of us, I think the initial reaction is frustrating loss, especially I think with just all the opportunities at the end where, the Ravens get a safety and you think all you have to do is get a first down and, you win the game. They end up not getting the first down. Tucker has an opportunity to kick a 61-yard field goal, which, is a big field goal, but everyone has confidence in Tucker to be able to do it. He falls just a little bit short. And then you get the ball in overtime at least twice. And, couldn't make anything come of it. And then, of course, the pass interference or the lack of pass interference call on Flowers at the end is one of those games where there's a lot of frustrating plays that weren't made. Or, in the case of the Colts made them and the Ravens didn't. And I get being frustrated, definitely in the moment. I mean, I was not happy either coming out of the game. But I kind of agree with you, Peter. I think the blip in the season, I feel like I kind of said in the group chat, I feel like injuries right now are that's the main killer. To me, I feel like the three position groups that right now have been hit the hardest were really the difference in this game. Outside linebacker, I feel like coming into it wasn't so bad, but even with OA being out, you're a little concerned about that group. Then Ojabo had to exit early. At that point, I mean, you're running significant snaps with Moon and Tavius Robinson. Those guys I think they played okay, but they're still young players. I think there were, lots of issues, I think, with setting the edge. And frankly, I think in the run game, I think, the Ravens letting up over 100 yards to Zach Moss is absolutely crazy. I'm sure lots of people around the league never thought that Zach Moss would have a game like that. But outside linebacker, big issue. Offensive line, I think, last week we were really happy with the performance. This week, not so much. And I really think we overlooked the Colts defense and defensive line a little bit. And then finally running back too, at the end of the game, it's you just need to get a first down. And the most reliable guy you have on the roster to be able to do that, Gus Edwards, out, concussion protocol. So yeah, to me, it's not there to kind of point fingers, but to me, I feel like it's just kind of highlighting the point of, injuries right now. They've really got to find a way to get guys back and healthy. And really for the guys who, are having to play in their absence, continue to step up, continue to execute really well, get better week to week. Fortunately, I feel like the matchup wasn't, not, I think, like what you said, like it was like a tier 2 matchup, right? It's not a division game.
Yeah.
It's a conference game, which kind of sucks. You'd wish it were an NFC game, but, it's not the end of the world that they drop one, especially early.
I guess this is our first opportunity to talk about lost tokens. Obviously, you're never.
Well, also your new tiers terminology.
Yeah,
you're very excited to debut this.
It's not unique. I actually heard it on the Locked On Ravens show, and I was like, oh, that's a good way to look at it. Because I feel like I had that in my head, like gut feel. It's like, okay, by absolute playoff ranking, it's conference games, then or divisional games, conference games, and then NFC games. So I liked hearing it like adjudicated out as like tiers. I was like, okay, tier 2 game, definitely going into 2 out of 3 tier 1 games, and then 1 tier 2 game, all away. This is the one to lose. And I think you put it really well, Chris. I really like kind of your opening statement there with the 3 groups that were most hit by injury were the 3 groups that struggled the most and like really could have helped close the door, because that's the thing that's so killer. I think that maybe disappoint fans the most is like, we got the safety and we're like, ooh, we won the game. All we have to do is run out 2 minutes. We did that last week. Surely we can do it again. And then there was all the kerfuffle with the clocking reset because his foot went out of bounds, and then the fair catch, and then the penalty stopped the clock, and they didn't call the face mask for offsetting. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is, we ran off like 12 seconds instead of 2 minutes. And you're like, well, that's not good. So that was one door not closed. But then I remember also like earlier, Stout had that punt like down to the 1 yard line, like fields, and we were like, ooh, so good. Armour Davis with like the key special teams play, like surely we've got this now. And it was so many times where you're like, it's going to be an ugly win, but it'll be a win, feeling good. Tucker misses a field goal. It's not unrealistic to say 61 yards in wet field is a little tricky. So all that to say, like, I think it's a good wake up call. It's a good wake up call. They're going to have to lose the game eventually. And, rather do it now. And I love the fact that Harbaugh today during the presser, recording this on a Monday, was like really enthusiastic about a lot of the things he saw on film. He thinks a lot of players played well. And he's like just so eager to, keep working on getting better and not so hung up on the results. Obviously the results stink. You don't want them. But at this stage of the season, and also in general, like, you lose games, teams lose, games. It's just a good opportunity to kind of reset and move forward towards this next really difficult stretch.
Like Alex said, you're going to lose games this early in the season, and those losses hopefully don't come back to bite you. Again, like Alex is saying, tier 2 matchup. When it's all said and done, could this have ramifications for the wild card? Sure, absolutely. But there's so much more football to play. I think what's most important from this game is having a quick turnaround. And it sounds like Harbaugh's in the right mindset, rallying the troops. Like, don't get too down. Like, realize what went wrong, because those things need to get fixed, right? But just get ready to fight, because you got a tough divisional matchup on the road coming up right away. No time to feel sorry for yourself. Just got to go back into the lab, figure out what gets fixed, and just move on. And we'll see how they bounce back, because that's really how you really know if a team's good or not, right? How you respond to a loss. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. But no doubt in my mind, this team is still going to win plenty of football games this year. That said, we're going to need to find some ways around the injuries, which I guess is how we'll start looking into this. Because quickly going down, once again, we are looking at a game coming up here where it could be just like 2021, right? Where we won't have J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, or Justice Hill. Still to be determined for Hill and Gus. I think we're going to have to wait for more through the week. But yeah, I think this offense is really missing J.K. Dobbins. Gus, we love Gus. I think he's got a great role on this team. But, as your starting running back, he is a little limited, right? He's not going to be able to make those stretch plays that Dobbins is able to make. He doesn't have that explosiveness. He's really good in between the tackles. That's what he can do. He's not a receiver. He hasn't caught a pass since the playoff game against Buffalo. So that's why they brought in Drake, and you got Melvin Gordon still there, but those guys were available for a reason, right? We kind of saw that. Gordon had a couple plays. Drake had the big play and then fumbled. Running back, one of those positions that, like you said, Chris, was something that we needed better production for in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought overall, I mean, Gus did fairly well. I mean, I agree with you. He's kind of limited, I guess, in that aspect. But I feel like I think I said in the group chat, like if you have Gus or Hill and someone else who's productive, i.e., not Melvin Gordon, I think you're fine. Actually, I mean, aside from like the symbolism, I guess, of the Drake fumble, I guess, if you will, it was kind of like the catalyst for, falling apart. Honestly, I think if you take that away, though, like, I'm actually excited for Drake to be back because I think he kind of fits that mold of a Justice Hill. He's got the speed to be able to get to the edge. He can make some plays in the pass game. Honestly, like, if you want your third running back, I guess, in the mold of a Justice Hill, like, I think you could definitely do worse, i.e. Melvin Gordon. I really, I don't think Gordon's the guy. Mitchell, obviously, I think is on IR. He won't be back till at least week 5, if that. But he's a rookie, so who knows when we'll see him. But I mean, you just need 10 yards at the end of the game, and it's kind of really frustrating. Just the one thing that's been reliable, even in the first 2 weeks, with all the injuries in the first 2 weeks, and just like the new offense and everything, like we could still mostly count on the run game. But we're gonna have to see. But I definitely hope that Gus is able to come back. I mean, they're saying concussion protocol. It might be a week, might be 2. We'll see. I feel like it's like the only silver lining, and I hate, I'm sure a lot of Ravens fans kind of like hate to hear this, but it really is kind of true. The only silver lining really with all these injuries is that there's not that many that are like season enders. So yeah, like right now it stinks. Guys are going to be hurt. Your squad's not going to be full strength. You might lose some games. You might not play as well as you think you are, but guys are going to come back. Not a guarantee that it's going to stay that way, of course, knock on wood. Clutch your rabbit's foot, do whatever you need to do, make sure that the Ravens stay healthy or get healthy. But, it's a silver lining nonetheless.
I guess if we're talking offense, definitely felt the pain of that fumble by Drake. We were humming. Me and K-Fish were talking to one another, like, we're humming. Like, this offense is out of control. We're going to be able to score at will. Life's good. And then that fumble happens, and you're like, hate that. But everything's fine. And then the next time the offense got the ball, they seemed lost. It seemed like they lost all their mojo. They were playing scared. They were playing like they didn't want to lose the ball again. They lost the ball anyways. So those two things, like, they don't go great together. Another thing that was like super frustrating to watch is that Bateman was clearly getting more and more frustrated as the game went on, and then he got hurt, it sounds like, with the hamstring tightness. We were watching him. We were calling his number all day, being like, hey, like, look at Bates' side. There's like no one there. He has one corner to beat. I believe in him. Like, why don't we give him a look? And he got separation a couple times. There was one time that Lamar was looking over to the left and passed it to Zay, like a quick little pass. And Bateman must have had yards of separation. If he like at all, maybe the play wasn't designed to go that way, but like if you look to the right, it might have been a touchdown, and just like I could see Bate like throw his arms up in the air and like being like, man, like, I'm cooking over here and like no one's even looking at me. And I could see how like frustrating that would be for him. Particularly with, Odell out of the game. This is a kind of a good opportunity for him to be able to shine. And I felt like he might have been the missing piece in the passing game, at least, that just completely underutilized. 3 targets, only 1 catch. And, they weren't, at least one of the targets wasn't even a high quality target. Like the ball was going to be uncatchable. So, yeah, tough times.
Yeah, at some point this season, Bateman has to be a focal point of this offense. Now, I wouldn't be shocked at all if the reason that he hasn't been worked in that much is just due to injury load management. I mean, we've talked about that, but yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point. We knew going into this game that Odell was going to be out, right? And Aguilar had a great game against Cincinnati, but why not try and get Bateman involved as well? It is a little perplexing that it's we're 3 weeks in and still, like you're saying, the ball's just not coming his way. And look, I love that we're feeding Zay flowers. He's got a lot of talent. I think it's really great that we're getting Odell and Aguilar some looks already early in the season. They're vet guys. You're going to need those guys down the stretch. We need to see some of Bateman, and whenever that is, hopefully, he can be the guy that he left off at. It's certainly the couple times they've gone to him, like we've said, he's looked good. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Hopefully, there's a plan, and hopefully, the coaching staff isn't giving up on him because he's got talent. And in a game like this, yeah, absolutely, I agree. Offense is struggling to move the ball. It's kind of stinks when you exit the game and you're like, oh, one of our playmakers didn't even get a fair shot to show if he could, do anything in this situation to help the game. So pretty frustrating, but at the same time, holding out faith that the Ravens are keeping the big picture with Bateman. But yeah, we don't know. So all we can do is speculate as to what's going on there.
One other thing I wanted to bring up, and curious your guys' thoughts. I don't like the super heavy looks. They brought in Falele several times in super heavy looks. There was also plenty of times where it was like, two tight ends and Ricard out there trying to run the ball. And we didn't have much success with that. One thing we talked about is like, man, the front seven for the Colts, I think were not sold well by Pete. I'll have to give him a talking to at the festival. Be like, why don't you tell us more about this front seven? Like, I hear they're one of the best in football. Now, like after the fact, it's come out. The word on the street is that they're not that bad. And I'm like, we should have really talked about that because, I mean, obviously with the offensive line woes we had and just running on, fumes in the RB room, we knew it was Gus and not much behind him. We probably would have had a little bit different tune about our ability to maybe get yards on the ground and clean pockets for Lamar. And that was kind of the case during this game. But to kind of go back to my original point, I don't love running out of heavy because we almost never get any explosive plays out of it. And like, we're like kind of praying for the 1 or 2 yards. And I just don't truly think our likelihood of getting the 1 or 2 yards you need for a conversion is much higher in that scenario than like running out of 11 where you might not be running at all. I don't know. I feel like the expectation of those plays is always pretty low, and I'm always like, oh, they got it. It's never like very confident inducing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like I remember the first. I don't know if it was the first or second. It was a play early on. I think it was in the first half where they brought Falele out the first time, and he just couldn't find out where to get set. And I think we ended up taking the timeout at that portion. I was just like, it's a little frustrating to kind of go there. It's kind of giving me Roman flashbacks of, getting to the line with 5 seconds left, except we had 1 second. From like an execution perspective, I obviously didn't like that one play. But it is, fairly easy to rectify, just get there with more time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I certainly think they're going to make an attempt. They're still trying to make an attempt to incorporate some of the run game, short yardage plays, packages from Roman's offense. And like, to me, those are going to be phased out later in the season as Monken gets more comfortable in his offense and knows what he wants to do. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things too. Like, I know it's not just Ricard. Obviously, Falelu's in there and you can put other linemen in there as well, but like, you gotta find some plays for him, I guess. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but just I feel like that may be the logic there. Certainly, would I like to replace that with like a Bateman look? Yeah, sure, that'd be great. Mark Andrews, absolutely, sign me up.
I think you bring up a good point though, Chris. And I'm pretty sure Monken even said something to the effect of this too, like that he didn't want to come in here and completely change everything that the Ravens are doing, and Harbaugh said the same too. They weren't looking to completely, abandon the run, abandon what they do well. And Harbaugh spoke multiple times during the offensive coordinator search, and when Monken came in and emphasized so much about how the Ravens through the years have really done really good job at running the ball, and that's one of their identities, one of their calling cards. So Will those plays get phased out? I wouldn't be shocked at all if they do. It makes total sense to me that, Monken's bringing in a lot of new concepts, and he's looking at all the players that have been here, and you're looking at, well, what was successful in the past? Let's still keep some of that while we're bringing in the new stuff, so we can fall back on that stuff if the new stuff isn't working, if the new stuff isn't ready, right? So, we'll have to see how the season goes. I would be surprised if they keep it in. It, to me, feels like it's still in there just because, not everything that Monken's there for is up to speed. Not everything's game ready. Not all the players are ready. That you can't just put this in overnight. We've been talking about this, how McDonald's defense took about half a season last year to get in place, and then once it was in place, it was excellent, right? But there was some growing pains there. I think we're seeing the same thing with the offense, and hopefully those plays get phased out, because like we're saying, we've got a deep wide receiver core, and Alec, I think, brings up a great point. Like, when you have that package out there, it's almost certainly a run. It's telegraphed to the defense, and what you're sacrificing there without, the deception is like, well, we got so many big guys here, we think we can just plow you over, right? That's what you're trading off there. But, with a quarterback like Lamar, you don't need to do that, because you always have the threat there of someone who can run, spread it out, you can pass, you can run. There's so many different things you can do. So, yeah, I'm with you on hopefully that gets phased out, but I can see why it's still in there right now, if it's in there as kind of a transition from the Greg Roman offense to fully what Monken wants to do as the season goes on.
Yeah, think about it too. There were also plays in this game. Lamar had a really great game rushing the football, ended up with 2 touchdowns rushing as well. And, a lot of those were just out of empty sets where he just read the defense, everyone spread out, and then, was able to pick up. I think first touchdown was just that. So, yeah, the Ravens, can have success on the ground even without heavy sets. It's really just kind of about spreading it out and, taking advantage with Lamar. Now, obviously, that's him and that's his abilities right there. But, I feel like the point still stands, right? I think they've had success in some of these, like, 3 wide sets and 11 personnel. They're still spreading the defense out. There might only be a running back next to Lamar, but they've, in certain situations, I think it can work well. But it'll be curious though, just trying to figure out some of the, kind of like short yardage plays, like what the Ravens want to do. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like the only thing that's like sort of concerning to me right now is I feel like we haven't seen that reliable, sure-handed target yet. Even Andrews, I feel like, he was fine this game. He was 4 or 5 targets, I think 35 yards or something. Still a little reliable, but I feel like he's been a little quiet. I think maybe the injury kind of put him behind a little bit. But outside of that, I feel like I would like to have another person emerge as a sort of go-to target on those 3rd and long, 4th and short sort of plays. I feel like, this game in particular, we just didn't have as many opportunities to convert, or didn't convert on those opportunities. So I'm definitely curious to kind of see who kind of steps up.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you there. I think there's another thing that kind of went wrong in this game is you need that go-to receiving target that you can go to in games down the stretch that you can trust to make a play. Andrews feels like a great candidate for that. He has been in years past. Odell, I think, will be that guy when he's healthy. He has shown a good amount to me that he can be that with the limited time that he's been here. But yeah, I think that in a game like this, we needed to see more from Andrews. I don't know if that was the play calling. I don't know if that was just blanketing on the defensive side. I haven't had a chance to see the all-22 yet of this game, so I can't comment too much on that. But yeah, only 5 targets for Andrews in this game. In the 4th quarter and overtime, I think they needed to go more to him. He's your best playmaker on the field right now. I understand that there was a lot of talk in the offseason that Lamar can't just be zoning in on Andrews, but when it's crunch time, you got to have your go-to guy. And I think right now that's Mark Andrews. When Odell's here, I think that it's both of them. But yeah, I think that's a great point. Someone needs to emerge from this offense as a go-to guy outside of Lamar calling his own number when it's crunch time in these close games.
Feels like in a way they're leaning on Flowers there as well. And I'm not too against that, but it is interesting. Listen to this, guys. Flowers had 8 receptions for 48 yards for an average of 6 yards a catch. His long was 8. How remarkably consistent that he would get you 5 to 8 yards a catch. You know what I mean? In order to average 6. Like, that's so crazy. But it makes sense. It adds up with kind of the experience of Mr. Jitterbug getting the ball. He wasn't able to really break anything, but he was able to. Usually he caught the balls and converted for first down, which was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the great thing about Flowers, and we're seeing this a lot more now, and I feel like it's it's much more natural than week 1, where week 1, like I said back then, it felt really, really forced. But now, like, you see him getting the ball and then like squeezing for a couple extra yards here and there, which is, I mean, no shade against Hollywood. I still love him. I still think he would have been great in this offense. I love him for all the opportunities he had, but like, man, what a difference in play style between Hollywood and Zay. I mean, Zay will get you those extra yards. Like, he lives for that contact. He'll be juking guys out, going low, getting whatever he can to get those extra yards. Hollywood, that wasn't your game for the most part. But it's so crazy. I don't know. I feel like it's so crazy. Just like the Ravens tried twice to try and get someone of that body type to. I mean, I guess to have like another Steve Smith, maybe. I assume that was probably the intent there. But it took him a little bit to get Zay. But yeah, I think I'd like to see more balance, obviously. But I think they're leaning on him for a reason, for sure. So I think he's gonna have a big game at some point.
I think one more thing we have to address with the offensive side of the ball before we move on to defense, just the frustrating play that's been the offensive line this year. We came out after the Houston game and really talked about how that was a disappointing effort for a lot of reasons, and then come back the next week, go into Cincinnati, have an excellent game. McCary and Mustafar had to go in there and play for the injured Stanley and Linderbaum, respectively, held their own against Cincinnati. Like we said, there was only one quarterback hit allowed. Unable to transition that to this game. And like we said, Colts, very talented front seven. They came to play and they had great games. But at the same time, I mean, Cincinnati, they're equally as strong too. I mean, maybe you could even say they're even a little better. They got more veteran guys. And they were able to handle it there. So, bit perplexing why this game was so much different, so much of a difference in a challenge level for the offensive line, but something we're going to have to keep monitoring, unfortunately. Timetables for Stanley and Linderbaum still unknown, but I mean, even then, Zeitler looked like he struggled a little bit this game. Moses could have been a little sharper. So, I mean, it wasn't just McCary and Mustafar struggling in this game, although they definitely had their struggles. McCary was beat for the sack. I believe he was the one who let the defender by on the Lamar Jackson fumble. Errant snap from Mustafar. Other plays throughout the game. It's got to be better. I mean, and they know that. But, yeah, disappointing effort from the offensive line in this game, particularly after they played so well against Cincinnati. And,
they're going to have another really tough matchup, especially McCary, Myles Garrett for next week. I mean, I don't know if you guys looked at his stat line against the Titans.
I'm aware.
I'm gonna say,
it was all right.
I'm going to say no. 3.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Yeah. I mean, I think it was Andre Dillard, I think their left tackle. Oh my God. Yeah. He made him look like an absolute turnstile. So, I mean, I think McCary is better, but that's still, I mean, he's, definition game wrecker. And, I mean, to be, and we'll get more to it next week too, but I think the Browns' defensive line is also really, really strong. So it's going to be another really tough matchup. So, whatever they can do to kind of get prepared for that game and change up some things, maybe work a little bit better, keep the things that did work. They're going to need all of them. So
moving along to the defense, it was a unit that I felt pretty satisfied with. Gave up a touchdown on a kind of unfortunate play. Just beautiful rainbow ball from Minshew to Moss, a combination I didn't know I'd talk about this season, but apparently is relevant. Queen just wasn't able to break that one up. And then Matt Gay just knocking long field goals through their uprights consistently to kind of, go ahead and beat the Ravens. But I feel like we got to talk about kind of the switcheroo that happened due to injury. We didn't really get to talk about because we recorded earlier in the week. It became apparent that Ardarius was hurt. Now he's on the IR. He might be gone for the year. Kind of crazy. Go from no clear signs of injury to might be gone for the year. So we'll see what happens with Ardarius. But in that role, boom, Kyle Hamilton moves down to the nickel, and Worley played every single snap of defense on special teams. And then suddenly superstar Hamilton came out. I don't think he was playing poorly on the back end. I think in a way maybe his number wasn't getting called. No one was going his direction. But in the nickel, he made his presence extremely known with 3 sacks and a pass deflection and some solid tackling as well. He just was all-around solid player. So
everyone remembers 2004, and actually ESPN just did a cover story on it either last week or 2 weeks ago for the 20-year anniversary of Michael Vick breaking video game Michael Vick breaking Madden. But Ravens fans remember next year after that, who was on the cover?
That was
it was Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis, right?
Yeah.
So I remember they made a big emphasis on upgrading defense in that game because Michael Vick single-handedly destroyed defense. You couldn't play defense against Michael Vick in the video game. I don't know if you guys ever figured this out playing it, but I remember that game. The nickel blitz was unstoppable. You just took control of your slot corner in that game, and I forget where you lined him up, but it was one place you could line him up, and you timed the snap perfectly. You got a sack every play. That's what it seemed like to me. It was giving me flashbacks to Madden 05 when I was playing that and just doing that move. Hamilton it was unstoppable. And even he got there 3 times, and he had that tackle in the backfield, the pass deflection. There were a couple other times where he got close. They blocked him, but he was close and was disrupting the pass. That was just... I don't think we've seen a more dominant performance from a safety blitzing or corner blitzing from a Ravens player ever, which is saying something. Just that consistently in the backfield was just incredible. Obviously, we want Hamilton at strong safety, his true position, but... man, at nickel is he dominant. He is so good. And his coverage was really good, too. I mean, just an all-around great game, and it is such a shame that we didn't win because if we had won, I think he would have been shoo-in for Defensive Player of the Year. Of the week. Got a lot of work still to do, Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe he will by year's end. Well, no, I don't know, because he has the talent to do it, but definitely his coming out game yesterday, he was a force there, and that was really, really awesome to see.
Yeah, I feel like you guys have kind of alluded to it a little bit, but it's just like it's such a shame that there's such a difference, at least to us fans, of the position that he plays. If he could still be a great strong safety. I'm not saying he's a bad one, but it's just one where doing your job and making sure that your guys are covered, the ball can just go somewhere else, and it looks like to most fans that you're not doing much, even though you look at the all-22, you're covering your guys and everything. But yeah, that nickel spot, he's just really able to affect the play, it in tons of different ways. So we'll see what happens. We hope we have more corners. I think it's. I guess I didn't put that in my top 3 groups that I was concerned about. Although that's right there at number 4. But we'll see. But shoot, man, if he stays healthy, knock on wood, all the pieces of wood, we need you healthy, honey. We're totally fine. He's got that position locked down.
Yeah, I don't know. If if they can confidently keep him at the safety role in for a team that plays nickel as much as they do, I do think that him maybe playing slot is the best option. And I don't think it was just matchup driven that he was down there. I think it was a lot because of personnel. And
definitely. Yeah.
Harbaugh wouldn't say that, but he acted like there was many reasons, but I'm pretty sure there was one real big reason. And I think
we just love Kyle there. He ate Fruit Loops this morning. He just gave me a vibe that said that nickel was the best spot there. He just really loves nickel, man. Just really passionate about nickel.
No,
no nickel
actually,
lover.
yeah, the number one reason, Minshew. Like,
right.
I feel like I still have a soft spot for Minshew. Like, I feel like he's been constantly overlooked. I know his arm strength is not that great, and I know that he's never going to be like a top 10, top 15 quarterback or whatever. But like, I don't know, there's just something about him. Just like, oh man, this guy plays well. Obviously beat us. Played well enough to beat us. So yeah, I mean, there's that. But I mean, yeah, with the arm, wingspan of Hamilton, you can have obviously a big impact on Minshew's ability to kind of throw the ball down the field. Because of kind of where his arm strength is at. So yeah, I kind of agree with you, Alec. I feel like that was probably dictated by the matchup a little bit and the personnel that we did have.
I think it's super cool about him too is just when he's down in that area of the field, his wingspan's so big. He's such a large man that he just can impact so much. Like he's rangy, obviously, on the back end. The same thing is true, and he might be able to take away a lot of things on the back end, and then that funnels him to the shorter passes, etc. But if those safeties are still doing a good job in funneling them down, anyways, if we're already a funnel, him being around that level is incredible. So I was so enamored by Hamilton, and due to my my scheduling, so to speak, of I wear a jersey until they lose and then I switch. I will be switching from Flowers to Hamilton, and I hope never to change it all season long. I think the next thing we want to talk about is the edge. We alluded to it off the top. Only 3 active edges after Ojabo went down early in the game. Tavius Robinson got the highest amount of snaps for an edge player in this game, and I don't think that was on my bingo card for the whole damn season, let alone by week 3. Definitely a byproduct of unfortunate IRing of Malik Ham, which may or may not have been particularly valid, so he was unavailable to come up. Moon had to come up, and then they were already shorthanded, so it was him, Moon, and Clowney going after it. And I think that really was a blind spot for the Ravens, or a vulnerability. Early on in the game, they were letting up a lot of runs to the outside. They were unable to set the edge, and we were not getting the run defense performance we were so accustomed to. We almost took for granted no one runs against the Ravens. Like, you can't do it. And it turns out you can, I guess, if you go to the outside and our edges aren't getting set well by our, third string outside linebackers that were getting, barely sniffing the field or not even active before this game.
Yeah, it was asking a lot of those guys. You rewatch the tape, Colts rarely, if ever, ran at Clowney's side. They just had to go and attack the side of the players who, quite frankly, have talent, but, they're not ready. That was a smart decision by them. It's a solid offensive line. Zach Moss, it's funny. I think our perception of Moss is so clouded by the failure that was his career in Buffalo. But, like Chris mentioned last week while we were doing the preview, like, who has done well in Buffalo since Marshawn Lynch, right? It's just been a decade of them just cycling through guys. That might say something more about the system than them. But, Moss, you look back, last 4 weeks of the season last year, he had strong games. And he didn't play in week 1, played week 2 against Houston. Everyone's like, okay, fine. It's Houston. They can't defend the run. He's showing that he might actually be a solid back and was just in a bad situation in Buffalo. So, you put that combination there, a solid offensive line, a solid back versus players who just aren't ready yet to handle that load of consistently setting the edge and stopping the run. It seems like a perfect formula for what ended up happening in the game. So hopefully we can get some health there, or those guys can develop, because Clowney's holding up his edge of the ship. He's been way better than I expected him to be. But yeah, that side right now with where the injuries stand, that is a weak spot in this defense at the moment.
Yeah, hopefully Ojabo can come back. I mean, really, honestly, next week.
And Bowser.
Yeah, Bowser won't be until week 5 at the earliest, but it's like, man, if we can get some of them online, that'd be great for a divisional opponent. So we'll see.
I just want to hear some positive news about Bowser. We've heard nothing. We've heard nothing suggesting anything that he's anywhere close to coming back, have we?
They asked Harbaugh today, and he said, well, none of those guys can come back until next week, so I think I'll address it next week.
Okay.
He's like, no information. He's like, you can ask me next week. I'll answer next week or something. And then, like, kind of like, I agree to give you a little more substantive answer than this next week. So, oh man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what more to do there. I mean, Malik Harrison, would he get snaps there?
Sure. Yeah, I actually thought he'd play more than he did. He was actually one of the captains of the game at the coin flip. Fun fact. So I was like, well, maybe he's going to be out there a lot. And that might have been his highlight of the game. Let's see. He had... Where is he? I feel like he surely had snaps, right? Like, why am I not finding him? Oh, he only had 8 snaps. So 10% of the plays was he out there.
Yeah, actually, that kind of reminded me of something. Like, actually, can you look? How many did he have? He had special team snaps, right?
89%.
89%.
32 of them. Yeah.
Do you know what was that rank on the team?
Number 1.
Was it really? Cool. That leads in right to a point I was actually going to make because you mentioned it earlier. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like a lot of these starters on special teams that have now had to play significant snaps on defense, that's kind of a problem in the short term. I feel like it's definitely related that we're not covering kicks as well as we should. And I mean, frankly, just from like a depth perspective, I'm really concerned about that getting worse, at least in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so Phillips also had 89%, but yeah, they're tied. I meant to bring it up last week. I'm very concerned about the fact that Hamilton and Stone were a part of the punt coverage. I'm like, man, like, guys, they're starting 2 safeties, and we have like really no one behind them, at least active on game day. And then you had the nightmare scenario of Stone going down, and you're like, oh God, this is very bad. He came back into the game, and it doesn't sound like there's much conversation, so maybe it was a stinger or something, but oh my God, my heart stopped when I saw him down the field because he's such a key player at this point, particularly with Williams being out for who knows how long. And I just, oh gosh, we can't afford to lose those guys. And then playing on special teams is tough, but then you look at, everyone who's active and you're like, well, there's literally no one else to do it. So yeah, it's a tough break. Certainly challenging. Like you said, I thought Worley played every snap. It seems like they did get him out near the end. Maybe he didn't play in the special team snaps during overtime, but like during the regular part of the game, he played all of them. So he was he accounted for 102 snaps. I've never seen that. Obviously, like we had a whole extra or a quarter, but like so many snaps in one game for one player.
Well, I think before we go, we do need to highlight a player who had an incredible first tackle in the NFL. We need to congratulate Team for their first tackle in their NFL career being a sack, which was the safety on Minshew.
All right.
I just thought that was funny. I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, you look in the box score and you look under Ravens defensive, there is a player just listed as Team. And Team had 1 total tackle for, it was a solo tackle for a sack.
A solo team tackle.
I mean, I guess
that's just how it scored there when the quarterback steps out of the back of the end zone. Just the team gets the tackle, apparently. But
is it a sack too?
Score, yeah, it's a sack.
Man, we need to get a couple more of those. That'll really
Right?
inflate those sack numbers.
It really feels like it should be attributed to Minshew. Like Minshew tackled himself by stepping out of the end zone. Like
That's
that's
true.
how I would score it. But
Yeah.
That's
in the
fascinating.
official ruling, it's just listed as team.
I think with that, we want to go to moral victories. I have one for sure, but I'll open the field for whoever wants to go first.
It's tough in a game like this. It's tough. Always first moral victory awards coming off the
It's been a long season for that.
first one of the year. I guess I'll give my moral victory award to Jordan Stout. You know, the playing time trophy. You know, punter is such an interesting position, isn't it? Because like if you have a game where you're out there a lot, usually the team didn't do well. Like, right? But Stout got to be out there a lot just due to ineffectiveness of offense. 7 punts. Had that big one, had that one that, was short. So up and down game for him, but we'll give it to him. He got on the field a lot. Good for him.
I'll give mine to Hamilton because I think, if we had come out with the win, he would have been the MVP. So I feel like by definition, that's a moral victory.
Hey, that's great. And I would also say maybe Ott could be it because he was the one who got the stop on that 32-yard punt return by McKenzie. He forced him out of bounds. So long snapper, getting some action. But my moral victory has to go to the Ravens organization, specifically our ticket consultant. I don't know her official title. I used to have her card nearby, but anyways, Emma. Emma was fantastic, helping us be able to swap our tickets and bring our friend who needed wheelchair access to the game. Got us all hooked up there, and even came by and said hello. And just a reminder of I feel like how nice the Ravens can be for people, and you reach out to them asking for some help. And I was just really touched that we were able to pull that off, and happy that I don't know. It was a good experience. I definitely felt nice to know that the Ravens try to take care of people and stuff. So I don't know. Definitely had those feel goods about the organization, even when we were losing and wet.
Hey man, I mean that's great, right? I mean, we all want the wins. We want the Super Bowl trophy every year, but there's so much more to sports and the sports organizations than just the wins, because only one team's going to host Lombardi every year. So when you're the organization that you cheer for goes the extra mile and does something accommodating and makes a experience pretty seamless for someone who needs that, I get it. That totally feels great. Really great to feel like, you're not supporting just a world-class organization as far as wins are concerned, but as far as, how they treat people too.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully the Ravens can get this stink off of them, go into Cleveland, and get a dub. But we'll be back later in the week discussing that matchup. Definitely a tough matchup and another key divisional matchup, Tier 1. You can find us on Twitter at OneWinningPod. Email us onewinningpod@gmail.com. We'll catch you later in the week. Go Ravens.